What about the cult of the celebrity growers? Is this a good thing for Burgundy? And how much of Burgundy does that really represent?
Perhaps you could say there may be 20 or so cult growers in Burgundy. And it's good in a way because it creates a big interest in Burgundy. It's a little bit dangerous in that perhaps some of these prices for these cult growers is getting frothy and could follow the same way as Bordeaux. But I think most of the people who run these top wineries are very aware of what's going on. And let's face it, there is tiny quantities when you compare it to Bordeaux. So the distribution via merchants like us is very important in that it gets to the people who are going to drink it rather than the people who are going to trade it.
That's quite important that Burgundy stays as a market where people drink and do not invest.
Indeed. And that is the real importance of having a good distributor in all your markets worldwide if you are a grower. It only takes a couple of them to say, right, I'm just going to sell this on to a trader, make 10%, whereas if you do proper work, you get it to the chap who's going to drink it.
And you're getting it to people in Asia as well as and the UK?
Some Burgundy domains we are the agents for in Singapore or around Singapore and in Hong Kong. So we do exactly the same thing there as we do in the UK, in that we sell small quantities to lots of drinkers. 20 years ago it was very different. There were a lot fewer growers than there are today. There are always lots of new young growers coming on. And in those days, you really waited for the wine to be bottled before you bought it. Nowadays, because of the en-primeur market that's been developed, we get to taste the wine in January, 14 months after the vintage, 15 months after the vintage. So that has changed a lot. And a lot more private customers can now taste it than they did in those early days. In fact, no private customers really tasted it until it was in bottle.
And when did the en-primeur market start?
It started with the 1990 vintage. That was the first, I think, sort of big, almost public sort of tasting for private customers, and it was a great vintage to start the campaign with. Not so easy for some of the other vintages that followed, the 91s, 3s, 4s, but it really caught on, I suppose, towards the end of the 90s and around 2002. There were a lot of other companies showing wine en-primeur. Yes, 20 years ago you could never have too much Bordeaux or too much port in your cellar. I think that was the saying. Now certainly Burgundy is much more important. I think customers can perhaps relate more to Burgundy than they can to Bordeaux, in that you can meet the people who own, make, sell, bottle, market the wine, whereas in Bordeaux you're slightly, because of the negociant system, you're kept apart from the people who really are making the decisions. So it's popular in that way, and I think the prices for the majority of Burgundy have been kept relatively to heel, as you might say.
The price has gone up a little bit in the last 4 years or so, particularly because there have been some small vintages.
Shortages, yes.
And so how much of the price has gone up over the last 4 years, would you say?
There is really no sort of single answer to that, because there will be Bourgognes that have hardly gone up at all, and yet there will be Grand Crus that might have gone up anything sort of from 20 to 50% almost. So there is no single answer. You can still find very good value Burgundy from the lesser villages, and even some of the Chassines or whatever, Merceaux, But the Premier Crus certainly have gone up, probably a little bit quicker than the villages and the Bourgognes. Yeah.